Hello and thanks for joining us for the KREM 2 News Weekend Review. I'm Cody Proctor. Each weekend we walk you through the headlines from this past week in the Inland Northwest. Let's get started with one of the biggest news stories of the past few days.
As the Old Trails fires swept through northwest Spokane and tens of thousands of people evacuated, Dean Carr decided to hang back and help.
So I threw some jeans on, a long sleeve t-shirt, and then kind of went looking for work.
He recently retired from the Spokane Fire Department after more than 30 years. The wind-driven flames had reached the edge of his neighborhood that backs up to Riverside State Park, and burning embers were starting spot fires right next to homes.
Instant commander was down here. I kind of came down, caught up with him. He and I have known each other for 30 some odd years, and just kind of let him know that I was staying and offered whatever help I could provide. And honestly, he was so occupied, he didn't really have time. So I just kind of went out freelancing a little bit and looking for work.
And it didn't take long to find it. An ember started a neighbor's hot tub cover on fire. The flames had spread to the house and the fence. Dean says he grabbed a garden hose and knocked them down just as the fire had breached a window.
I went through their backyard because I could tell by the time I got here that it was right off the corner of their house.
As he was showing us where it happened, we captured the moment. The grateful neighbor came out to thank him.
Thank you again for saving our house.
Oh, you bet. It was my honor.
Sean Edwards had already evacuated. He's convinced Dean saved his home and likely others.
There were spot fires all over the neighborhood, including this one, which just about took our house. So I just eternally grateful for Dean for saving our house.
As for Dean, he says he just did what he trained for decades to do, and he's grateful he could make a difference.
And it's just, right place, right time, right opportunity and training. I was happy I was able to do it.
As evacuees make their way back to their neighborhoods, now that these evacuation orders have been lifted, the recovery journey is just beginning for those whose lives have been upended by these wildfires. Now, that's why organizers wanted to reiterate that while the Disaster Assistance Center is closing today, that doesn't mean that there won't still be resources across the county for those who need help. Again, the Disaster Assistance Center is located here at Shadle Park High School and is open from 9 o'clock until 6 o'clock tonight. They have everything that you need from food to pet supplies. They have insurance help, and they even have a place where you can get help with sensitive documents like a birth certificate or a social security card. They also have a free kids day camp and a place where you can come and get some clothes if you need. Executive Director for Student Support Services at Spokane Public Schools, Becky Dowdy, has been co-leading this center. Now, she says she understands that 6 days might not feel like enough for these people who lost everything in these fires, but again, she wants the community to know that help does not end here.
And I know that that's how people can feel in a time of crisis like this, is that everybody shows up right when it's happening, and then people move on and go about their lives. And we just want our neighbors to know that we are going to continue to be here. Even if we're not here at Shadle High School, there are going to be resources throughout the county to be able to support them as they move through the process of rebuilding their lives.
Dowdy says she doesn't have an exact number of just how many people came by for help since the center opened its doors last week, but just days ago, she says there were over 200 people who came by to utilize this center. Now, like I mentioned earlier, they have everything from insurance trucks. They have the Red Cross mobile unit as well for people. They have things like sifters and PPE kits. They have masks and gloves. So if you do end up returning home and your house unfortunately was burned in these wildfires, they have everything you need here to make sure that you are as safe as possible returning to that area. Again, today is the last day for this Disaster Assistance Center, and the hours are from 9 to 6 p.m. In Spokane County, Christian Garza, KREM 2 News.
The flames look different from one side of Washington to the other. Chelan Hills destroying 19 homes and more than 100 structures. The Spokane wildfires scorching thousands of acres, leveling hundreds of homes. And Little Giant so far destroying 2 homes and keeping thousands on alert. And Kaiser Canyon burning more than 138,000 acres across the Colville Reservation. But after the fire comes another reality. What will it actually cost to come home?
It's a terrible tragedy in Spokane in particular, but also across eastern Washington.
The state insurance commissioner's office says after the Gray and Oregon road fires in 2023, about 2/3 of survivors were underinsured. They had insurance, just not enough to fully rebuild.
So the first thing that they might find out is, you have a $500,000 limit. Your deductible is some percentage of that, $20,000, but it's going to cost $700,000 to replace your home and its contents. That can be a surprise for people.
And even before a home burns, getting coverage is becoming harder. From 2021 to 2025, the number of Washington policies insurance companies chose not to renew rose 56%. The state says it's seen pockets of non-renewals, particularly in central and northeast Washington. For people still under level 3 go now orders around active fires, Kenton Brine, the president of the Northwest Insurance Council, says don't wait to call your insurer.
If they're in an actual evacuation order, not a prepare to evacuate, but an actual evacuation order, they should immediately contact their insurance company because they may be entitled to or have access to benefits like additional living expenses that will help them afford to stay in a different location.
And for anyone who could face a fire next, Brian says there's one simple thing you can do before you ever have to file a claim.
I strongly urge people now, right now, to pick up their phone and walk through their house, take pictures, or just narrate. I got this couch a couple of years ago. We've had that TV since 2012. Anything that you can detail.
Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Weekend Review. It's been a busy week across the inland Northwest, and we want to help catch you up on some stories you might have missed.
Oak Ridge and Property Management Company.
We have a pulse of what was happening in the real estate market and the rental market, and both are kind of at a crossroads after what happened last week.
The Spokane complex fires leveling entire neighborhoods. One of the first things Melissa's company did was work to furnish as many rentals as possible,
So that we can help people who've been completely displaced that have nothing and help them in a state of overwhelm kind of piece things together.
She says most of their previously available rental units got scooped up pretty quickly after the fire sparked. If you are in a current lease, landlords cannot go in and jack up your rent. But if you're looking for a place, Melissa says rent prices were just starting to come down after the pandemic. But with all the families needing somewhere to go,
There's not going to be the bargaining power that they were finally starting to see in the rental market, and we're probably going to see those rental prices firm up again.
as far as the real estate market, with more than 700 homes destroyed, she says likely the majority will cut their losses and move somewhere new.
Looking at historical examples, most experts say that only about 1/3 of those who lose their house will go through the rebuild process. Now, the city of Spokane has stated that they're going to work to accelerate the process, but we know it still takes time.
With all the extra steps around environmental cleanup, she says a wildfire rebuild could take 18 months at minimum. The potential of hundreds of families looking for a new home could cause a market shift too.
The Spokane market for the last couple of months, if not years, has been very much a buyer's market. A buyer has a lot more options available, has more negotiating rooms than they have in years. And so this could be more of a balancing effect that we see.
We'll likely see the impact of these fires for years to come. But Melissa says it's also put the strength of our community on display.
There's a huge hole in Spokane's heart right now, and it's just amazing to see everybody rally together to support those who've been on evacuation or have lost everything, and that we can truly be proud of.
Yeah, the district's assistant chief says it'll cost more than $1 million to replace the engine and all the equipment, and it could take about a year to get it up and running. The biggest thing they want folks to know as they're going over options to get those estimates, they're not going to be raising taxes.
Took only seconds.
Once he saw that the vehicle was stuck, the truck was already catching on fire.
For a fire engine to be engulfed in flames. The vehicle carried up to 2,000 gallons of water to support firefighting efforts. The firefighter driving the truck was traveling to get more water when heavy smoke created poor visibility, causing the driver to get stuck in a ditch. When he tried to get out, the engine went deeper into the ditch and got stuck.
The amount of heat was so intense that it started catching those things on fire almost right away.
Assistant Chief for District 10 Andre Stevens says the firefighter managed to escape the engine and get to safety with help from crews with the Department of Natural Resources. Now the district is looking at next steps in order to replace the engine and its equipment, which Stevens says is going to cost more than $1 million.
All of those items are pretty expensive, and it takes time to get them in. I would say in about a year we'll finally be able to see some of these items coming in.
Right now, the district is going over costs they're able to get from insurance, and they are looking at grants they can apply for to cover additional costs. What they won't do, according to Stevens, is raise taxes.
Passing the cost to the taxpayers is not one of the options that we want to even entertain.
Stevens says he's grateful a fire engine was taken away instead of the lives of any of their firefighters, saying where they stand is the same as many community members impacted by the fires.
It's very much very similar to what our homeowners and the people that had vehicles that burned up in the fire are going to have to go through.
Stevens says as the district goes through the process to replace their engine, they hope they can relay that experience to others having to deal with insurance as folks plan for next steps. Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
The good news here, Meade says that their schools were not actually structurally damaged, but they say that's not the only concern. And with students coming back to school soon, the district says the challenge now is time.
6 Meade schools were within 1.5 miles of at least one of the 3 Spokane complex fires, some even closer.
While none of our school buildings sustained any direct structural damage, several facilities were in close proximity to the fires, some within a half mile.
That proximity means what's left behind matters. The district says smoke, ash, and other wildfire particles can affect indoor air quality and settle on carpets, surfaces, and building systems.
The urgency of the work that we're considering around evaluation, remediation, and preparation of our affected schools coincide with the start of the school year in just a couple weeks.
The school board unanimously approved an emergency declaration. It allows the district to move more quickly on emergency work without waiting for the normal competitive bidding process.
We're excited. Because we have all the resources been provided.
For parents Ashley Mowbray and Chelsea Smolk, it's a welcome step after watching the fires impact so many around them.
I'm just glad that we're able to have the community come together and get as much as we can done.
The district says it doesn't yet know the full cost of its wildfire response, but says work is already well underway.
The district says the goal isn't just to make sure that schools open, but to make sure that they're safe for when students and teachers return. In Meade, Emily Fox-Millian, KREM 2 News.
Thanks for joining KREM 2 News this weekend. I'm Cody Proctor. Right now, we're taking a look back at some of the news stories from the past week.
There's no sounds of waves crashing against the shore, no fish making their way upstream. Instead, bone-dry conditions and large rocks everywhere you look.
And it just sends chills up my spine that this is awful.
Joel Schultz is the Spokane River keeper, and according to the organization, last year was the first time in recorded history this section of the river ran dry.
Now I should mention we're here at Barker Roads, just upstream and just downstream of Sullivan Road. So this is really the Spokane Valley that we're looking at. And this is the same stretch that went dry last year.
And speaking of last year, this section didn't dry out until August 19th. This time around, the dry conditions began 2 weeks earlier, and now experts are literally trying to find the leak.
We're studying that with Spokane Community College, and we're actually looking at how much water's leaking out of the bottom of the river, seeping into the bottom of the river, because that's where the water's going, just straight through the bed of the river down into our aquifer. But that's happening at a faster rate.
Low flows heading into the river have also contributed to the dry state of this section, but ultimately, there's no confirmed answers right now for why this is happening.
And this whole ecosystem has just been destroyed by this lack of water, right? There used to be crayfish and fish and macroinvertebrates. And it's just the whole ecosystem, and that ecosystem's now gone.
After Labor Day, the flow will improve artificially due to drainage from Lake Coeur d'Alene. But until then, things will remain dry, and the Spokane Riverkeeper will keep searching for answers.
This seems to be telling us something, and if we listen, we could probably fix it.
From Spokane Valley, Brandon T. Jones, KREM 2 News.
Big changes coming to Thornton Murphy Park. That's the one behind Trader Joe's on the South Hill. The Spokane Indians, Les Schwab, and other partners are renovating the baseball fields as part of the Community Fields Project. Now, this project involves restoring one baseball or softball field in our area every year.
Hey, we gotta dig out this side some more.
That means this field is getting updated from bottom to top, including a new backstop, repainted bleachers, bases, and more. Some of the other fields to benefit from this community project: Lincoln Park, Medical Lake High School after the 2023 fire, Grant Park, and Plants Ferry, just to name a few. Now Thornton Murphy will be more comfortable, safe, and clean for families ready to play ball.
The community in Twin Falls came together for a vigil that was hosted by In-N-Out. Several community members, In-N-Out employees, and even families of the victims were here. They shared a prayer together. They were here supporting one another during these difficult times.
We mourn the lives that have been lost and taken from us, and we lift up every family member, every friend, every person whose life has been forever changed by this tragedy. God, we ask you draw near to those who are brokenhearted, just as you promised in your word. God, grant us your peace in the midst of sorrow, your strength in the midst of our weakness, and your hope in the midst of despair.
Friday, law enforcement officials also held a press conference at City Hall where they shared a video showing those moments that the shooter arrived to the restaurant. We want to warn you that these videos are incredibly difficult to watch, but you can see the moment that he opens fire at the In-N-Out over the weekend, and it shows moments all throughout that shooting up until the moment where he takes his own life. Law enforcement officials say they will no longer name the suspect, and instead they will be focusing on the victims and the Good Samaritans who stepped up to help.
Our citizens and business community, thank you. Thank you for your resilience, for being there for all of us, the victims in the community, to all of the victims and their families. God bless you, and may you find your way through this tragedy. Our community will heal, and we will not allow this to define Twin Falls.
Incredibly difficult videos to watch, and law enforcement officials say that this is still an ongoing investigation and they still have not found what the motive was. Reporting from Twin Falls, Christian Lopez, Idaho's News Channel 7.
Thank you for joining us here on KREM 2 News. You're watching the Week in Review, where we bring you some of the biggest news stories of the past week.
By the end of the month, ICE officers will be trained and using these cameras, and soon they could also be outfitted with the new gloves as well. The agency says it plans to spend up to $20 million to purchase thousands of the gloves. The department says they're designed to help officers gain compliance and de-escalate confrontations. The devices are known as the GLOVE, G-L-O-V-E, which stands for Generated Low Output Voltage Emitter. The company device is manufactured by Compliant Technologies, and they posted this video on Instagram showing how the gloves are used. The device has been used in recent years by some jails and police departments, and they're expected to be rolled out by March. For the body cameras, ICE agents will be required to wear them and have them recording when they're out conducting operations and making arrests. However, just because it's recorded doesn't necessarily mean the public will automatically see it. ICE's policy gives the agency significant control over when that footage is released, including in some cases involving serious injury or death. Here in Washington, we know there have been at least 90 arrests made here over the last year, and that number comes from research by UW showing federal agents took data from the Department of Licensing and used it to make arrests during traffic stops. Agents kept accessing that data even though there are state laws prohibiting them from doing so. Reporting in Tukwila, Savannah Welch, King 5 News.
President Trump said he was following Secret Service directions last month when he snuck off Air Force One and onto an airport catering truck to board a smaller plane.
They wanted me to do it, so I do it. I do what they say.
The president ended up flying on a military 757 from Turkey to England, while some of his aides and reporters flew the same route on Air Force One. Sources familiar with the situation tell CBS News that Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent remained on Air Force One, while Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth flew with the president. Sources tell CBS News that the secretaries on Air Force One who were separated from the president and maintained the line of succession were aware that he was on another plane. The press was not. CBS News' Nancy Cordes asked the president about this.
Why was it too dangerous for you to fly on Air Force One, but not too dangerous for the
I think
press?
actually the plane that I flew on was at greater risk.
Why
I think
do you
it was
say
at greater
that?
risk because that would be the plane I think that they would be more likely to go for.
By they, the president was referring to the Iranians. According to the New York Times, the Iranians knew a lot about Trump's movements during last month's NATO summit, including where he was staying and even which floor. Two officials told the Times that someone in the vicinity of the summit had been spotted with a shoulder-fired missile, and that there was a specific and credible threat about it being used to target Air Force One.
Were you worried about a shoulder-fired missile?
I don't worry about anything, to be honest. Whatever it is, you know my attitude? Whatever.
Top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer is demanding a briefing on the Iran threats, writing it is unacceptable that Congress was kept in the dark. Aaron Navarro, CBS News, the White House.
Keep it here for more news and weather updates throughout the weekend. And don't forget, you can watch our latest newscasts anytime on the KREM 2 app. Just scan the QR code on your screen to watch for free. I'm Cody Proctor. Thanks for watching the KREM 2 News Week in Review.